Here we are, jig night again. Holy cow. Feels like it's been weeks, folks. We're back, though. The greatest jig show on earth. What's going on, everyone? Jig Squad, Mike Murphy, Barracuda, and we're here tonight with John's Jigs. So many of you guys have seen John's Jigs spotlighted on my Instagram page. Maybe you're following John yourself. Links are all going to be available down in the description, but I'm super excited to have him here tonight. And we're going to be talking some really cool jigs. And John actually sent me some. I think it was Sunday night. And so we're going to get into it and talk a little bit, but I'm just going to shout out some people in the room, everyone. Vince, Master Malone, George, Dave, Gary, on the fly. Kuda's late. I know. Must have forgot to hang his fish on the wall. No, I almost, Brian, to be honest with you, I almost decided I'm not going to hang the fish on the wall anymore. And I said, nah, let's just keep doing it until I transition downstairs. So, Larry, evening. And everyone else, whether you're watching on replay or you're jumping in the chat here as we go. Alf, Paladin, what's happening, buddy? All right, so John's Jigs. I think a lot of people have seen pictures of your stuff or features of your stuff before, but tell us a little bit about you, how long you've been designing jigs for and how that all started and where John's Jigs kind of came from.
Sure. Yeah. I grew up fishing with my dad and my brothers and just having a great time trying to catch anything. And kind of all over the place too. Lots of different species, all over the country. Somewhere along the line, I must have run into somebody who was fly fishing and just got a bug in my brain that looks like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. Do you see what Gary said here?
Yeah, he's a joker, isn't
he? So you got a bug and you're like, all right, these flies, they look pretty cool.
The flies look cool, the fly casting, the fish you catch, they're a lot of times they're getting trout.
Sure.
And I just loved the whole thing about it. And I don't remember if I was maybe 6 years old, tied my first fly.
Wow.
Some rusty old hook, out of the bottom of Dad's box. And I raided my mom's craft bucket and pulled out some of those, like the dyed purple and pink goose feathers like you get from, Hobby Lobby or whatever. Tied it on there, and I'm like, what do you think, Dad? And I fished it, didn't catch anything, but.
And that was the start of it.
I remember that day, that little nasty little fly I made and trying to cast that thing out into the water with my little Zubco spinning rod and oh man.
And 6, you were young.
I don't know, 6, 8, something like that. Just a
young enough.
Yep. Yeah. And never really quit trying to just putz with my baits and taking the Sharpies and coloring them up a little bit and just tinkering with stuff. So that's kind of how it all started. And as I got a little bit older, just kept going with that kind of self-taught. I pulled books out of the library about fly tying and watched some YouTubes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about maybe 5 years ago, I went fishing on a clear lake, real clear water, and I was just having a terrible time out there. I was watching these fish just following my lure up and turning away and just kind of turning up their noses, which I was probably just using the wrong thing or something. But that was kind of the day when I said, you know what, enough is enough with this. I'm not going to go buy a bunch of stuff from the store and have these fish just turn their nose up at it. I'm going to start really trying to make something.
Sure.
And I'd always had a lot of good luck with getting fish to take those flies, just the unique actions and it's like nothing they've ever seen before a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about how can I go down that road and take some of what I know of fly fishing and just use it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Use it with my more conventional gear too, and so I started doing that, tying some streamers into jigs and stuff, and oh, that'd be me for sure.
The clown.
Yeah,
I know he
yeah,
definitely does. He definitely does. He wins. He
yeah,
wins.
yeah,
So that's all right. So you started incorporating this in like over the years, right? So
yeah, yeah,
um now fly tying can become very complicated, right?
yeah, for
And
sure.
John, I
Mhm.
don't know if you've ever heard me say it. So like how so I my journey in jig making was pouring lead for a lot of years of simple things like ball heads and tube heads for smallmouth fishing, and then it went into my first foray into making things were some just horrible marabou jigs, and I've gotten a little better with help from good people that have given me some good tips. Um, but what happened is during COVID kind of happened, and like
Yeah,
I decided, like I got fascinated with flies. And you remember when I was talking about the casting
yeah.
eggs that I had bought? Look at that,
That was
beautiful.
one of my first ones from like 4 or 5 years ago.
Let me make you big here, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tied on a little ball head jig that I got from Cabela's, and
That's
I
great.
mean, it's got this weird kind of dubbing glue head, and I don't know. It's
It's there.
yeah, yeah. I was just messing around, having fun.
That's great. I think the thing is, somehow you just got to get started.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um, you don't have to. The only way you get good at something is you have to start doing it, right?
right,
And
right.
it's funny because when so COVID happens and I start tying flies, right? Because I'm thinking I'm going to use these things with casting bobbers, basically casting eggs, floats, call them what you want, right? And
Um,
and from there, then I finally bought. I have an 8 weight,
yeah,
so I actually now I have a 5 weight, too, but I don't use them that much. I don't. But what I did do is I started to learn how to tie some flies, but that was all purposeful for mostly salt. And then I said, well, listen, I could take all these mechanics and things that I'm learning and use them to tie things for bass. And then the Jig Squad stuff started, and kind of I'm
sure.
like, there's a lot of good designers out there that I want people to be able to hear their story, and I've gone through a lot of evolutions of all my thinking on all this. Like I went through a lot of trying to imitate people with
Mhm.
flies, and then I started getting into now I don't need to imitate people, right?
It's a place to start though,
It is
to learn some of those proven patterns, and especially the ones that are not only effective but simple too. That's just great.
Clousers,
Yeah, yeah, deceivers and clousers and woolly buggers and
woolly
oh,
buggers, maybe probably
yeah,
one of the easiest.
yeah.
Yeah.
First fly I ever tied, woolly bugger.
Yeah, and then like I've one of the things that's come about a lot, and well, here's the thing. I'm gonna tell a story right now. So here, let's look at this real quick. Guggen Slayer, what's up, buddy? So Gary says what's nice about John's jigs is he's a different perspective on the patterns he's developed. Nice work, sir.
Thanks, Gary.
So Gary, you guys, it's funny how small the world of fishing is, right? So so John's up in Wisconsin, right? And Gary's in Northwest Indiana. And the reality is, here's me, suburbs of Chicago, and Gary and I talk periodically, right? And Gary talks about John, and just how he comes up with some of his designs and things like that. And probably the ones that I'm most fascinated with, I'm going to be honest. Hold on, let me find it because it's one that I know I posted on the site before. Um, this is one of the first ones I came across of John, to be honest with you, in a similar profile colorway, right? And it was with this, and I can't say it was loon or whatever it was with like the modeling that he put on the baitfish pattern here, the light blue up front. But this is one of the first jig design colors that I spotlighted on Jig Squad of John's, and from then he kind of got me excited about baitfish patterns, to be honest with you. And I'm going to say why. Even though John's, to me, I'm like, wow, that's so creative what he did. To me, it opened my eyes to what I could do with dubbing. And it reminded me of something I heard Gunnar Brammer say, and that's, whoa, I'm on this like one of these stand-up desks, and it like goes up and down here. And I hit buttons periodically. But it reminded me about one of the things Gunnar Brammer used to say about when you create a fly or a jig fly type design, you're trying to create a couple different things. Are you trying to imitate it with color? Are you trying to imitate a bait fish with profile, bulk? And how do you do that? And so when I saw John's stuff, here's another one. This is one I was just talking about with John that I really love. That's like a perch one, right? I just love these bait fish type profiles, right? So talk about that a little bit, John. Like what's your favorite type of jig to make, and one that you make more than any others?
Yeah, I probably fish a lot of bait fish profile jigs, just because it's my fishing style. I like to move. I like to fish fast. So, whether I'm going down to a river or a lake or something, what you just held up right there, that little craft fur bait fish pattern, it's easy to make. Everything wants to eat it. I can fish it any way I want to, and just super versatile that way. So,
and these ones that came my way, John, these are these are real interesting heads. I didn't look at this way. I'm going to tell you, hold on, look, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can get this.
Yeah.
So do you see the head here, guys? It might not be totally clear, but did you compress these yourself?
Yeah, I poured a ball head jig and smashed it with a hammer.
I love it. I love it.
So that I could stick some big eyes on it.
Yeah, and did you just punch? Are these just punch outs?
Yeah.
I love it, dude.
So you go to Walmart and you get the cricket paper.
Yeah.
It's really tiny, and you get a hole punch, and you punch a little
punch.
hole, and collect all that stuff out of the hole punch and glue it on there. Just just the little circles.
I really love it. And I'm going to tell you, John, the reason I really love the head is because it's compressed a little bit, almost more aspirin head. Yeah, I don't know. One of my favorite molds is that freestyle mold, which is basically a ball head with recessed eye areas, but it's a little bulkier than an aspirin head. And then this is even better. Like there's a jig out there. What is it called? A moon eye. I think a lot of people use. It's like a store-bought one. It's like a VMC moon eye jig head. The walleye guys like it a lot, but I really like that. So you guys, listen. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I want you to know that sometimes things don't have to be complicated to make extraordinary stuff. We're going to get into the details of design elements that become very important along the way. But I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to talk about how you decide to be creative in what you do, and how you create profile. You guys see like the profile that gets created here?
Yeah, kind of a teardrop shape.
Yeah. And again, keep in mind what John says. Yeah, Alf, skinny heads. That's correct. Look at what Brian says here. The first time I met John, I think about every jig he had in the trunk of his SUV.
Pretty close.
And I will say that's something about Brian. He's a good person, and he definitely supports. Yeah. He definitely supports bait makers, and I know he's got a few in his stable of people he really likes, and you being one of them, John. So, and that's just things I've heard. Not to Brian just makes fun of me. I don't appreciate him because of all those mean things he says, but once in a while I have to compliment him and say some nice things about him as well. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to meet Brian and just to see how much a guy like that who knows his stuff and makes his own stuff and sells just to see how much he appreciates what I do, and that's just it's a lot of fun.
I mean it's all right. So you start tying your own things, right? Yeah. And so I obviously these are things that become available for people to get if they want. Is that correct?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Right. When you have the time.
You're
And
right. Yeah.
if people
Limited
are
by
looking
my
for
time.
stuff, they can message you where on Instagram?
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I do sell a little bit through retail locations. I think there's 2 places out there that have a little bit of my stuff,
Okay.
especially if they're in the Fox Lake area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mostly just get a hold of me.
All right, let's start getting into this a little bit, right? So, talk to me. One of the things we were talking about a week back, you made mention. You said, and I actually think you did a live. I don't. You did it on Instagram, didn't you? Do a
Yeah,
live about tying baitfish patterns.
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about that. Why, why would you tell anyone listening that some of these baitfish patterns are one of the primary things that they should start looking at when they're trying to start making jigs, or even if they're looking to take fly tying into a jig making situation? Why start there? What is the value of this baitfish pattern?
Oh, I don't know if I would necessarily start with that bait fish pattern. It's easy
Okay,
for me, but it's not easy.
I understand.
Yeah, but something like that, like maybe go with bucktail deceiver kind of a style, uh,
Okay,
or something like that. That might be a little bit more. I don't know. But just bait fish patterns in general, huh?
yeah,
I think. I mean, I don't know. It's just what I like to fish, I guess. And
okay,
it's it's a thing that fish are always eating something like that, and I can take
okay,
a bait fish pattern jig like that, and depending on how I fish it, it can be a fish, it can be a crayfish, it can be, I don't know, whatever. It
right,
just it looks alive, basically. It looks
right.
alive. It's the right size to eat, and I think that's what really makes it effective is probably the action more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The Alf is asking. He says, "What about an email for you, John?"
oh, yeah, you could shoot me an email, johnsjigs@gmail.com.
Hold on, I'll type it in here. Did I do? Let's see. Did I do that
Yep,
right?
that's it.
Johnsjigs at gmail.com.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so
But you know, yeah. What were you gonna say?
um no, I was just gonna play off of that a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So so basically if somebody wants to get started, you guys listen, here's the thing. Anyone listening or on replay, you have to find people that become your mentors to an extent. It doesn't mean that they're at your beck and command, but you have to put people in your tribe, right? And what do I mean by that? I mean, you have to take the time to create connections, right? And it doesn't mean that you soak them for all they're worth and take everything you can out of them. You got to give a little, and sometimes it's as simple as just being appreciative, right? Um, let me give you an example. If you're starting off and you want to tie something on a jig, right? Write down the key things that John just mentioned: deceiver, bucktail deceiver, things like that. And those are the things that you go and
bunny
you start
leech.
looking. What's that?
Bunny leech.
Bunny leech.
Absolutely. Put that on a
Yeah.
jig head. It catches everything.
Yeah. Write these things down. And then you go and you start looking up YouTube videos of
Hmm.
doing these things. Right.
Yeah,
And to be
yeah.
honest with you, if you want to buy jigs, you contact John. Talk to me. Oh, okay, I have to ask this. I can't help it. I noticed this before. You know when I held this up? Guys,
Yeah.
let me show you this. So John's got a 3/16, no, maybe it's an 1/8 ounce net head here. And the cool feature here is that he's got ostrich for some tailing in here. But I realized this last night, and I didn't, and I have to mention this. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. So inside the dubbing that John's included on this jig, and now that I'm holding out, I'm seeing there's like maybe a little green. There might be a little green element to this.
Yeah, there's like 5 different things in there.
Yeah. But the cool thing is, guys, he's got whatever he used. I have stuff that has this, but it's probably not the same. He's got stuff that has like these really fine micro rubber legs in here. And I forgot who Senyo's has some stuff that has that, but actually Fly Tires Dungeon.
That's where I got it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
You guys, I've showed you guys this before. Fly Tires Dungeon has really inexpensive price dubbing. And what they do is they're mixing a lot of it's synthetic, right? A synthetic dubbing, but they have all these micro, really fine rubber silicone type legs inside of it. And it's so fine. But what it does is it makes the dubbing look real buggy. And it just adds like, it's very hard to see. Do you see some of this hanging down right here? Like, look, you see the white on my hand. This is this feature, and it's so cool because I don't know, and it's really it's cheaper than any of the ice dub or any other dubbing that you're gonna find anywhere else. It's like $1.25 a pack. Yeah. It's Fly Tires Dungeon, and they have so many different types. You could get lost looking through all the dubbing and colors that he has. But this is a super cool jig. Talk to me about this a little bit, though.
Sure. Yeah. I wanted something something in that Ned bait kind of presentation, and started messing with it a little bit last year. Really loving the Brian Schmidt Ned Dread jig, and I just think that's such a cool idea. I kind of messed around with that kind of idea all summer, and then I was kind of putting the Ned bait on just a jig head, kind of dressed up jig head, and I started thinking I want something more that I can fish all by itself, just a Ned air jig, with the option to put a plastic on it too, so kind of dual purpose, right? So kind of went to work on that over the winter, and the ostrich hurl on there has just the right amount of flow and flex that it stands up and wiggles all by itself. It keeps that kind of nice cylindrical tight profile all by itself. But
this is the back end, guys. For anyone looking, it's this it's kind of like the thicker stuff. There, you can see it better here.
Yep. And at the same time, when you put that Ned bait on there, that plastic, that ostrich just kind of wraps around it, and it becomes like legs or tentacles or something like that. What do you want to pull up that the video about that? Let's see.
Is it the I got it, because the other one was like a craw tail.
Yeah, the one in the middle.
Let me bring it up.
Yeah, so that's the Ned hair jig with the plastic trailer on there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's one of those speed shrimp that I got from SDG. Just looks so good.
Ooh,
and then around the ostrich, there's foxtail around the ostrich, and then that leggy dubbing around that, and you get this kind of taper of materials. It goes from long and loose to kind of shorter and more bristly, and it gives you this movement that just kind of gradually unfolds from one material to the next. You can see it in the video there, where like everything is kind of moving at its own speed. And
look at that long little flow on it, John.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I got to go back again. Look at that. The long, oh my goodness. And it's not a lot. That's the thing that I like about that. It's not, hey, Al, I'm going to tell you something. The cool thing is, cooler than this jig is John figuring out about how to add the video before I even got in the room tonight. That's what I liked even more. All right, so I'm going to say something about this. I'm going to keep clicking back to it. The reason I'm so fascinated by this is because look at the profile of like the main body there, right? And then those tentacles are it's only a little bit in the back, right? It's not overdone. So what happens is it gives an opportunity. That would be a classic example of like how less material creates flow in the water. That tailing
Absolutely.
right there doing that.
Absolutely.
Because if it was bulked up, you guys, if it was bulked up, it's not going to do all that. It's not going to have as much movement because it's going to look more mop like.
Got to give it room to move.
Yes, that's exactly right. You got to give it room to move. And so I don't know. I thought this was a so John came up with this idea. So Jay's outdoorsy. What's up, buddy? How are you? Um, so Jay, hey John, Jay is asking what's your most exotic hair material? People like that question.
I keep trying to figure out a way to use the cat hair when she's crawling up on my lap, but I haven't come up with anything yet.
I it's funny you said that because I just started a bag about 2 weeks ago. We have an Australian cattle dog.
Yeah.
And when Lady C was brushing him a couple weeks back, I looked at it and it was this real light cream colored, even though he's like a brownish, multicolored brown dog. And I'm looking at it and I go, oh my gosh. I said, give me some of that. So I threw it in a bag and then she was brushing him yesterday. And I go, hand that over here. And so I put it in and I'm checking out the length and go, this isn't going to be long enough for what I want to do, but I could put this in a brush. I could make a brush out of this and it's going to be a super cool color. And it's super soft. It's like all the underfur off the dog. So I'm like, this is, you got to use the animal.
Yeah.
Free material.
Yeah, you can make
Free
a little car
material.
or something.
All right, so that's awesome. So John, talk about the hook that's in here. So this is what size would you say?
I think that's a 1/0.
One on?
1/0, probably a Victory. What is that? 111.49.
The V lock.
Yeah, the V lock. Yeah, I really really like that hook. It's so ridiculously sharp.
Yeah.
And I've just found when the fish eat that, I think they're hooked before I even know they ate.
Right.
You just touch that hook and you get stuck with it, and it just kind of works its way in, and I'll cast that Ned bait out and just let it fall down, and when I pick it up, there's a fish there, and he's already hooked.
Yeah.
And they don't come off. It's such a good hook.
I'm so impressed with a lot of your stuff, but that little jig caught my eye. It really did. And and part of it is just because it had a little bit of bulk by the head. I'll hold it up again as I'm saying it. It had a little bit of bulk by the head, and then as it
let me talk about that a little bit. That's a real common thing in a lot of my jigs is that they're more bulky at the front.
Okay.
Denser materials, bristly materials up by the jig head, and then sparse flowing stuff in the back. And the reason for that is that bulky, bristly stuff creates turbulence when you're pulling that thing through the water.
Moves water.
That turbulence, it wraps around the jig and it catches those loose materials and it creates movement in your jig. So
that was described really well. So you had, tell me again. So I know ostrich is in there for the tailing, but up by the top you had fox.
Yeah, it's ostrich and then kind of a blend of fox and craft fur around that.
Okay.
And then the
dubbing.
Dubbing wrapped around that.
It's really, I really like that jig. A lot of ones that you sent. All right, so listen, let's touch on something here because Jay made mention of this. So I know I have one in my hand. So Jay said John's craw jigs are awesome. That was his lead in before that. And I actually have, but you have ones in front of you, John?
It depends which. I mean, I've tied like 6 different versions of this thing, but the one I'm working with this year, that one. That's kind of on an Archie head.
Yeah.
Got one here on a football, but same.
Let me make you big here, John.
Same jig. Yeah, and I I've been working with this idea of trying to find some ways to put some plastic into my hair jigs. You know, you want to have that scent, you want to have that flavor, a little something to chew on.
Sure.
So I was just kind of thinking, I was fishing with a buddy of mine in his boat, and you know how everybody's got like 75 busted Senkos floating around in the bottom of their boat.
Yep.
And I was thinking, there's got to be something I can do with that, right? And we all take a chunk off the Senko and stick it on the marabou jig for smallmouth, right?
Sure.
Well, what about that idea? So I started thinking, you know, you can take that little chunk of whatever, and I can make a jig where that little chunk of whatever is the head of the crayfish. So
Nice.
you know, there's the hook with the little keeper on there, and I can just thread that little chunk right on there. And now my crayfish has a head, and the claws, you know, that head pushes those claws apart too. So they've got room to move, room to kind of pulse and kick. And then there's kind of a bristly dubbing loop that I wrap around over the top of that. That's coyote and marabou blended together. And that really creates your flow, your movement, that gets those legs really, really kicking and pulsing around.
You can actually see the coyote a little bit. It's so great.
I don't know.
It's very cool. So we got a video of it too.
Yep. Yeah. Got a test tank video of that one.
Let me bring that up, Jen. All right, so this gives you an idea here too. By the way, this is the first night. This is what it took. It took Wisconsin, took John's Jigs in the house to get something extraordinary like this going. And so you could start seeing the action of that again, right? It's beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, the way those
look at that right there,
kick and pulse. Yep. And I clip a little bit of the lead off of the shank on that football so that it stands up a little bit easier too when it stops.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, and so Brian with another extraordinary comment. Great guy, this fella. Hold on, let me move 1 second. Cuda can even catch a fish in that jig. Yeah, if I ever go fishing, Brian, that's the cool. Did you say you had a possum in one of them, or Jay? You're just saying you like that's a cool material?
I do use. Let's see.
Oh,
Let me get one out.
This is why.
This is why
having other guys come in the room like Jay is a good reminder.
So one of the real rabbit holes you can go down is just the different properties of these different materials, right?
Mm-hmm.
So rabbit zonkers float, possum zonkers don't.
Okay.
I don't know why that makes a difference, but sometimes, I don't know, something to take into account. I think possum zonkers move a little bit better in the water because they don't float. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe doesn't have that kind of upward resistance or whatever, but I use it on this bluegill just because of the color, honestly. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a little bit of a color shift on the top there.
Sure.
A brown tip on it, and it just, I think, adds just another level of realism to it. And you can see those brown tips just swimming in the water when you're reeling this thing.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, so I do use possum. It's a cool material, really cool hair.
That's great. And when you're talking about using fox, John, are you talking about foxtail or Arctic foxtail? Is that predominantly what you're using, or other options?
As much as I can, I use probably red fox because it's just a little bit more bristly, a little more buggy looking.
Yeah,
a little more crinkle in the hair, and I just like that. I don't think it matters. I use plenty of Arctic fox too. Probably Arctic fox and coyote would be the two tails I use a lot of, and coyote when I want something that's a little more buggy, a little stiffer. Fox when I want it to be a little bit softer and a little more flowy.
Is red fox? I mean, because I think Arctic fox tail is particularly flowy. Right?
Yeah.
Is red fox less?
Maybe Maybe.
I haven't worked with
Yeah.
it that much. That's to be honest with you, I can't even recall because I don't have any. So,
Maybe. Yeah.
okay. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Gators, of course, is asking skunk hair. Even
Skunk hair.
comes pre-scented. Yeah, it sure does. Um,
There was a Gunnar Bramer video about that, I think, wasn't there? Kind of recently, where he was messing around, or maybe it was somebody else, and he commented on. I
I
don't know. Anyways, yeah, skunk hair. Let's do it.
skunk hair. That's hilarious. All right, Bass is asking, do you have Bass? I think you're asking, does he have that to be able to sell the one in the test tank, the craw one? Is that what you're saying, Bass? The craw one or the other one, the Ned head? I'll bring it up again here. This one with the craw. This is the one where right here. I
Yep.
think that's what you're talking about, Bass. Yeah, this one, Bass, right here, this craw video.
Yeah, I got a bunch of those hanging on the wall
Oh,
behind me.
possum. Okay.
Yep, all ready to go.
All right. All right. So let's see. What does Brian say? How much of your fur down in the tackle den is roadkill?
Hey, you don't pass up free tying material.
Don't
Around here, we
judge.
got a lot of dead deer. So
Yeah.
sometimes I just pull over and
Well, I
take
mean,
a little
my
bit with me.
gosh, my gosh, it's going to be like on the black market soon if the price keeps going
Oh
up.
yeah, that's free bucktails in the ditch right there.
I mean, it has gone up quite a bit.
Mhm. Yeah,
All right, so let's see. I started to ask about those. No judgment, right, Gator? Listen, there's no judgment. All right, so talk to me about the retrieve style for the baitfish patterns.
sure.
What do
Yeah.
you what's the
Um,
main so if somebody wants to grab some of these from John, I mean, talk to me about what you're doing in
mhm.
terms of a retrieve.
Yeah. I mean, kind of just chuck and wind, but at the same time, especially when I'm fishing in the river, that's probably where I fish those the most.
Yeah.
I'm pinpointing where I think that fish is going to be, and I'm going to drop it right in front of his nose, and he's probably
Mm-hmm.
going to hit it before I even start reeling, or right away after. So that's kind of about how it is most of the time. Or you pitch it in there in the current and you kind of work it downstream and
Yeah.
across, like you're fishing a fly. But I will kind of just with my index finger kind of squeeze the rod a little bit, just like that,
Mm-hmm.
to give your retrieve a little bit of speed up, a little bit of slow down. And then with the ball head jig, when your retrieve is probably going to have a little bit of speed up and slow down in it anyway, right? You're probably
Right.
not cranking perfectly level all the time. But that ball head jig with the 90-degree tie, when you speed up, it tips forward. When you slow down, it tips back. And now your jig is undulating like this,
Yes.
right? So I like to give it a little bit of extra action that way. And then just the way the jig's built, it's going to kind of flow and kick at the
Right.
back, right? So you
Right.
you get different levels of movement that way. Um,
So you guys, anyone, live or so here's a side profile. Look at this. Okay, so let's turn it this way. But what's going to happen here is there's some sculpting. This is how I'm going to describe it. There's some sculpting on the head area up to about there. I don't know.
yep,
Maybe that's
yep,
not 100% accurate in the video, but there's some sculpting in the head that helps with the profile. But then what changes from that, from here back, is it's all going to be flow, and it's going to do two things as it rises and falls. Not only is it you're going to get tail flow, it's also going to undulate out a little bit too. And the reason, like I've talked about this before, in river systems. So, and I guess I started to realize this after I started bringing up rivers and how I like to fish rivers. I realized that I'm fishing smaller rivers than a lot of other people, and current in smaller rivers is a lot different than people like fishing like the St. Lawrence River and other larger areas. But what happens is like, I've been a wade fisherman all my life, right? So I get in the water, right? I'm a smallie chaser, and that involves it's taught me how to read water more than anything, right? But you read water because you start learning about current, flow, eddies, and all these different things. And you like, I don't know if you've been on this show before, you may have heard me say I could fish a 90-degree ball head jig almost anywhere, and the reason is because I'm a river fisherman and
Mm-hmm.
a smaller river fisherman where I'm used to figuring out how can I get this thing to slip along the current seam, and then I want it. What do I do? How do I adjust my rod? How am I going to mend my line even though I'm not
Yep.
fly fishing?
Yep.
How am I going to drag it through a little bit so I can catch a tail end of the eddy and then get it back into the current flow?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's where the fish are.
Yep.
And besides structure, right? So they're often behind structure that's barriers of blocking the flow of water, but that's where I could see these things excel. Like I basically and I haven't done it yet. I got all excited and bought more. I have two bags downstairs, one of Latera's dubbing that's supposed to be longer, and then I got more from Fly Tire Dungeon about a month ago because I wanted to make more baitfish patterns for the river. But interesting enough, I haven't done.
Oh,
I didn't have, and so what do? I'm like, I went to the.
you still going?
Don't leave.
All right.
If I don't know why it kicked me out for a minute.
All right.
If I fall out, I'll come back in. As long as you stay in the room, we're good.
I'll just hang out.
I worried about this last week because there was like a big storm going through the last time.
Yeah.
I know. I explained to people, I'm like, listen, two things. One, there's a tornado going, or 2 weeks ago, there's a tornado going through right now. And the second thing is I'm on a new laptop and connectivity for whatever reason has been interesting so far. So, but anyway, I'm a river fisherman. That's how I was born and raised. And since then, now I like fishing the Great Lakes and other things like that. But I love these baitfish patterns because they're just that cool thing. You've given me so many ideas for these, and I actually, guys, listen, I'm just telling you, if you're looking for baitfish patterns, go see John's stuff. But these Neds too, you sell these, John?
Yeah.
Just tell them that you saw them on
Yeah.
Look at Al says when Cuda stutters, just start talking, John. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So guys, listen, I want to tell you something about John. So John, along like when I first started Jig Squad, I had, a short time after starting it, I messaged John and I'm like, hey, listen, I would really like to have you on the show. And just life and managing families and stuff like that, it didn't work out during that time, right? And that's all part of it. And of course, you think I don't give up. Like I have my favorite people out there, and John always was one of them. And like I went back at John. Gosh, well, I think I did everything when I was on Christmas break.
Oh yeah, something like that.
And
January, something like that.
And John right away, he's like, I'm in. And I was so happy because I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to coax John into coming on the show.
Nah.
And it didn't go that way. And so you guys have to understand something. There's a lot of good people in this world, but John is spoken about very highly by a lot of people that I respect a lot. Some people in the room, Gary, who was in the room earlier, Brian's in the room, just a lot of people. And so he's inspired me in terms of just thinking about material and how I create profile and bulk. And I've learned a lot just about how to do different things and when to reverse tie and when not to reverse tie. And you just have to, I was saying earlier, John, like everyone, you guys have to find mentors, right? Find people to be around, or at least you casually interact with, that would help you out if you had a question. Doesn't mean that you flood them with stuff all the time, but people will help you out if you have questions. And if not, buy them.
Absolutely.
I just made I was telling John before he got on the show, I think I kind of cut myself short for what I have time to do over the next month, a little more than a month and a half's time before I go to Costa Rica. So I'm hitting up one of my favorite bucktail makers to make me some bucktails for going down to Costa Rica. So it is what it is, man. Patronize the people that do some cool things, you know. So John, talk to me about what else you have, other things that you like working on, because that bluegill one you were showing with the opossum, that's a much bigger profile. That's swim jig world is much bigger.
That's a 5-inch swim jig right there. That's
sure is.
I love fishing that one. That just gets bit, flat out gets bit. That was probably one of the first designs I started really working on and selling, actually, 4 years ago or so. And
Really?
yeah, and it's gone through so many different versions. I think back, what the first one, I actually have the first one right here.
Do you really?
Yeah, I got
Always fun to see the first
you can't
one.
see it probably. There we go. Oh, I mean, it's just ugly. Look at that eye. I had no idea what I was doing. I was tying a swim jig on an Arky head with a 3/0 hook and wondering why I couldn't get a hookup. It was bizarre, I this tiny little hook. But I have learned so much just in a very short period of time. Like you said, talking with good guys, getting some mentors. Some of the local guys here who kind of took me under their wing and took me out and let me show you what bass fishing's all about, and it's just these light bulb moments where you realize what you've been missing and go back to work. And so you never stop adjusting things and making it better, and I think that's probably the biggest blessing in all this is just really you form some friendships and you work together on stuff, and it's more than just fishing at that point, but it sure is a lot of fun too. And kind of as a side benefit, you really find out why your stuff works and why it doesn't, and yeah, it's quite a puzzle.
To be honest with you, that's I would say that one of the things that I dislike the most, but am most appreciative of finding out the things that haven't worked along the way with some of my jig making journey. So yeah, like not happy about it, but just going through that process of, like it really is a challenge. Like Brian knows this in chat. He might be the only other one. And I'll tell part of this story, but not all of it. So John, one of the things I decided, like I classically started off making silicone jigs long before I was ever tying with hair. And I just have a different concept of what silicone should look like, right? I feel it's my own. And I finally go, you know what? I want to make a few bucks doing this, like I don't want to like try and do membership things and all this stuff on YouTube. Like, that's not why I did YouTube. Right. And, so I said, I like the design end of it. Right. And so I go, I want to be able to put things that are out there that are my designs. And the only way to do that was to say, I'm going to do some small batch stuff. So I will tell you guys, and I'm at the point where I'm fine saying this now, not in 100%, maybe in time I'll tell the full story, but I had to make a very difficult decision, and at the last minute, and I held back right now. Like I've got a lot of really cool colorways going, and I held back and putting out my jigs that I wanted to put out. And the reason I did is because I ultimately decided that I wasn't going to use the hook that I had intended on using all along the way. And I had tested it, but I realized that I tested it in ways that weren't I tested the hook in ways that weren't the exact way that this jig was going to be used. But I've used this hook for other things. And I made a real big error. And I said, I can in good faith put my jig out with this hook. And, yeah. And I didn't want to do it because I thought I was ready to go. And I go, no. And I held. So I've got about 15 colorways that are just like, I love them to death. And I wish I could just sell the skirts. but I don't want them to fall apart on people. So I need them to get tied on properly. But I did. I changed out the hook to a hook that I've used for a lot of years that I know is reliable, that is really good. And I know that it's going to do what I need it to do. But that was a tough decision. I didn't want to do it. But that was an element of design where I go, I can't let my desire to put my colorways and designs out there be ruined by a hook that was going to be subpar. And I thought this hook was the next thing. And I'm like, and I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say what it was. That's not the goal. But I tell this because I think what we learn, whether in my case, I'm talking about it in terms of being a hook. But the reality is we think that our jig is going to do a certain thing sometimes based on the amount of material we put into it, what it looks like, all these different features. And then you fish it. And it rolls over when you don't want it to roll over. It doesn't do all the things you always want it to do. And so that's a lot of that's hard. That's hard to hold you back because you want it to work. You wouldn't make it unless you wanted it to work.
Oh, man. And
So
it can be so frustrating to go through so many trials and so many different ways, and it still isn't there,
Oh yeah. And from adversity comes new things and opportunity as well, right? So, from that experience, like there's been a couple other parts to that story that I'll tell in time that have turned out to be much better than I ever could have imagined. Just because of good people, right? And so we'll wait until it's time to tell that story. But so right now I'm holding a little bit. I'm putting out my jigs that I wanted to put out, but for legit reasons. And it's just I want it to be right, mm-hmm. And right means finished. And when I thought it was finished and it wasn't, and I learned a very valuable lesson.
Yeah.
But anyway, and this isn't like a mass production thing. This is just small batch stuff that I'm going to charge people money for, because I can't sell 7,000 stickers alone. That's not. What people actually want something usable. So I don't know. All right, so tell me the rest of 2023 for you. What are you working on? Any new crazy designs that you're hot to try? Oh, look at the young
hey, buddy. Yeah.
What's happening, buddy? How are you? Come on, we're gonna make you big.
This is Caleb. Caleb, you're on YouTube.
Caleb, what's up, buddy?
Caleb loves to go fishing too. And
nice.
He's good at catching them. I'm telling
nice, you. Caleb. What type of fish do you like to fish for, bud?
Northern pikes.
That's right.
A pike fisherman. There's a guy in chat that says he cries every time a pike takes and steals one of the jigs that your dad made for him.
Those pikes those jigs, don't they? When Caleb was probably, how old were you? 3 years old, maybe. He took one of these rabbit fur swim jigs.
Yeah.
And he was just playing with it over the side of the boat. And probably about a 24-inch pike just came and grabbed it. And he took that fish and he just flipped it into the boat.
That's great, buddy.
Yeah.
Keep hustling on those fish, Caleb. You're doing a good job.
That's right. We gotta get.
And I like hearing when somebody says they like pike too.
They're fun. They're fun as long as you're planning on them.
As long as you're planning on them. Caleb, I have friends that say the pike are not allowed in their boat when we're in the river. You know that? I say bring them in.
Yeah.
I like it. It's a fun extra catch, I always say.
We'll go there and clear them out for them.
Right. There you go. Well, John, listen, this has been fun, buddy.
Yes, it's been awesome.
One of the things that I keep telling everyone, and I've built up this community of a lot of good people that I would love to get on again. You being one of them. I think it would be cool to have you on like this summer. I need to get done with the school year, and I would like to have like a group discussion type of format. And I don't even know. It might be like a Saturday morning coffee. It could be anything. I might wait for the winter for that. Who knows? But I think it would be fun to have you on again. Caleb, maybe you can come and tell a pike story to anyone else that's on, and we could talk with some other people and have the whole goal is maybe to have some debates on just some fishing related topic. I think it would be kind of fun. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd like you
That'd
to
be
be
a great
part
time.
of it. All right, listen, you guys. It all links for John are down below. You can also find John on Instagram. One of these days it's going to be Caleb the Hammer back here, the pike hunter, pike fisherman. And but guys, I was real excited to get John on. If you have questions, ask John on Instagram. His
Yep.
email was posted earlier in chat. But anyway, you guys, this has been
Message, I'll be happy
Jigsquad.
to help anybody out.
Yeah. Any closing comments, John? Caleb, you have anything to say? What about the rest of the year for you? School.
I'm gonna have we're gonna have the rest of the school, and then we're done with it.
Yeah.
Nice.
He
It's
keeps
coming up
asking
soon.
every day on the way home from school, Daddy, can we go fishing today? Ever since the ice melted. Actually, before that. Yeah.
That's awesome, Caleb.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Caleb, you're welcome to
Good
come
guy.
back on Jig Squad anytime you want, buddy.
All righty.
All right,
All right.
John. You guys, we'll see you. We'll be back in a couple of weeks
Yeah.
again, but peace out. John, thank you very
Yeah,
much, buddy.
well, I appreciate all of you and thanks for the good conversations and just I love all the support we give for each other and the love we give to everybody's little creations, and that's just a lot of fun. That's why I'm in it. So
Very
thanks.
cool, John.
Yep.
All right, everyone. We'll see you. John, stay in chat. I'll end the show and we'll still be in chat for a second.
Yep.
All right, peace,
Will do.
everyone. I'm going to roll the outro if I could find it. Here we go. Have a good night, everyone.